So in today's lesson, we're going to talk about the Hindu shuffle. Now, I said in the previous lesson that we're going to talk about different shuffles and each are going to take a subsequent lesson because each shuffle has an entire universe of stuff to go with it. And the Hindu shuffle is no exception to that rule. So for this particular lesson, we're going to talk a little bit about controlling with the Hindu shuffle, as well as a couple forces and some touches on false shuffles that you could use with this particular shuffle. So if you notice from the Hindu shuffle itself, it is pretty much an overhand shuffle from a different grip. All that's happening is that you are cutting packets of cards on top of each other. So really the deck isn't really getting that mixed, and pairs of cards do stay together like in the previous trick that we discussed. But the Hindu shuffle does lead itself to a couple different things that could be taken advantage of. For example, the bottom card is the Jack of Spades, and that card stays as the bottom card no matter how you shuffle with the rest of the deck, which is where you could do a Hindu shuffle force, which is going to be the first thing we're going to talk about here. So assuming that the bottom card is going to be a force card and we want the spectator to pick the Jack of Spades, what we're going to do is that we're going to carry on to the mechanics of the Hindu shuffle force, and we're going to have the spectator call stop anytime they want. Now, wherever they call stop, we're going to ask them, are you sure you want to stop here? You're going to need a little bit of time misdirection. And what time misdirection is just a brief moment or a pause where you distract the spectator's attention from something that's going on so that their memory of said event is. So in this case, we want the spectator to be a little bit confused as to the positioning of the cards. So we ask them a question like, are you sure you want to stop there? So it gets their attention away from the cards for a brief moment and puts them thinking if they want to keep going or if they want to stop right here. Whatever they say, if they want to keep going, you just keep going until they call stop again. If they say stop, what you're going to do is you're going to lift up both of these halves and show this card right here. As you say, don't forget that card right here, the Jack of Spades. Of course, you're not going to say Jack of Spades, but you're going to say, don't forget that card right there. And you put that card in the deck and you have subsequently forced that Jack of Spades. Now, even though that force is very convincing, there are a couple little touches that you could add to it to make it a more effective force. And let's say we want to force the King of Diamonds. So the way that improvement would look like is we're going to tell the spectator that we're going to run through the cards like this, and they're going to be able to call stop anytime they want. So go ahead, sir, call stop anytime you want right there. And we successfully forced the overexposed King of Diamonds. So the way we do that is usually when it comes to the Hindu shuffle, we're grabbing package from the top and putting it in the left hand just like this. However, for this particular variation, we're going to need to do a little bit of a discrepancy here and a little bit of a modification to that grip. So the first action that you're going to do right here, instead of taking the bottom packet into the right hand, we're actually going to cut cards from the middle and do it that way. What this does is that now the bottom card, which is our force card, stays on the bottom. And that's the first action of the shuffle. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about this when we're talking about controls. However, for the sake of this force, what that allows you to do is keep that bottom card on the bottom, and the force card is going to remain in the position that we need it to be. So that's the first step of this. The next step is going to be to show this random bottom card. Now, of course, you're not going to be able to show this card throughout the entire length of the shuffle, so you're going to need a way to take this card out. And the way we do that is that we are going to first shuffle off and say, I'm going to ask you to call stop anytime you want. When I turn my hand over, I'm going to grab that card and a couple cards, it doesn't matter, and drop it on the half in the left hand. You see what that does? Let's get that into hot focus. So what this is going to allow me to do is to show different cards supposedly on the bottom of the deck as I'm shuffling the cards. You see how well that's covered, even from this angle, which is the exposed angle. So from this angle, you can't see anything. You're just showing the random cards to the spectator, telling them that they're going to be able to call stop anytime they want. So one more time, just to slow the actions down, you're going to grab from the middle instead of grabbing from directly the bottom. You're going to shuffle off this way, and you're going to say to the spectator, as you show the bottom card, that in a moment you're going to run through the deck, and they're going to call stop anytime they want. So here I'm just going to take the bottom card and a couple extra cards, drop that on top as I'm shuffling, so I could show different packets. As I'm shuffling along, I'm showing different cards on the bottom. And now when you get into the force, you're going to get into the force the same exact way as we talked about previously. This time the spectator is going to be under the impression that they could have stopped at different cards, but you're going to force the card that was originally on the bottom of the deck. So they're going to call stop anytime they want. Let's say they call stop right there, and that's the card that you show. So what this force adds to it, or this little touch, is that you are now able to show different cards on the bottom before effectively forcing the bottom card on the spectator, which is a very convincing action and very convincing for this particular force. So in the lore of the Hindu Shuffle, we've always noticed that the force card is going to be in the bottom of the deck and traditionally done in this particular style. However, there is a less talked about force on the top of the deck that does require a little bit of guts, but once you get the timing down, it's going to be a very convincing force. So the way that looks like is we're going to shuffle off the deck and we're going to have the spectator call stop anytime they want. Let's say they call stop right there, and that way we forced the 8 of spades. So this is going to rely on a couple different things. The first thing is that the force card is going to be on top of the deck. So the exposed angle for this, you want to cover this angle because there's going to be a little bit of a break that you need to establish. So what we're going to do in order to accomplish this force, we're going to cut from the bottom like before. However, this time, when we are touching the deck, we're going to pick up with our thumb approximately 5 to 10 cards with the right thumb. So we're doing this as we're going to shuffle the cards. And our right thumb has a packet of cards. So you notice that the flesh of my thumb is keeping a separation between the halves there. We're going to talk about breaks in a future episode, but this is a very rudimentary thumb break that you're doing just to separate both halves from the deck. So one more time, the force card is on top of the deck. In this case, it's going to be the 8 of spades. We're going to cut that card into the middle. So we're taking the stock from the bottom, and now the force card is over here, right? So what's going to happen is that in the context of the shuffle, your thumb is just going to come in and pick up 5 to 10 cards from the bottom of the deck. Now, this is happening as your left hand is continuing shuffling the cards in this sort of way, asking the spectator to call stop anytime they want. If the spectator calls stop now in this position, what you're going to do is you're going to drop these cards and kiss the deck briefly as you drop off those cards and say right here, take a look at your card. That's what's going to happen if the spectators stop prematurely. However, what you want them to do is that you want to time it so that when they call stop, you're in this position right over here with the force card in the right hand being the uppermost card of the right hand. So there, you could show that card to the spectator and everything's clean and fair. However, both ways are still very clean because you're still able to have the spectator call stop anytime they want and show that force card to the spectator without any sort of issues. So one more time. What we're doing, we're cutting off from the bottom. As we're shuffling, we're picking up a certain group of cards between 5 and 10 with the right hand thumb. We're keeping a break there and having the spectator call stop anytime they want. If they call stop over here, we're going to briefly touch the deck, as we mentioned, and call attention to the top card and say right over here, take a look at that card, don't forget it, and that becomes our force card. However, if they do time it correctly and you get to this position, when they call stop, you just drop that on top and show them the card and it becomes a force card. So that is the Hindu Shuffle force from the top of the deck and from the bottom of the deck. Now, the next interesting thing about the Hindu Shuffle force is that this card doesn't necessarily have to be used as a force card. It could be used as a key card. So what I mean by that is that you could shuffle off normally and have the spectator call stop anytime they want. Let's say they stop over here. This isn't a force card. It's a Queen of Clubs. Now, this card goes on top very fairly, and that Ace of Hearts becomes your key card because now, if you notice, that Ace of Hearts is directly next to the spectator's card, which in this case is the Queen of Clubs. So that card has, in effect, become our key card, and it's done in the context of a shuffle, so it's very fair. The spectators don't have any sort of chance to ascertain how you would know their card, but it's a very fair way of obtaining a key card with a deck, just using the properties of the Hindu Shuffle force itself. The next aspect of the Hindu Shuffle is the control. So how would we control the top stock? How do we control the bottom stock? Well, the bottom stock is very easy to control, and you already know how to do it. The top stock is very easy to control, and you already know how to do it. So to reiterate, let's say we want to control the bottom card of the deck or the bottom section of the deck. The way we do that is instead of shuffling and grabbing cards from the bottom with our right hand and shuffling off in that way, we're going to grab cards from the middle of the stock and shuffle off the cards that way. So what that does is that shuffles the top half of the deck and keeps the bottom preserved. So if we want to preserve, let's say the 4 aces on the bottom of the deck, and we want to shuffle using the Hindu Shuffle, we're just going to grab cards from the middle, just like this. So we're peeling off cards from the middle with our right hand, and that becomes the first packet that becomes Hindu Shuffled. So this is pretty much angle proof. You can't really go wrong with this from either angle. It just looks like you're shuffling the deck, but you're preserving that bottom stock of the deck. So that's the bottom stock. And again, you already know how to do that because we discussed how to do that in the context of doing that subtlety with the Hindu Shuffle force. Now, how do we control the top stock? Same exact way we talked about in the Hindu Shuffle force. So if we want to control the top cards in the context of a Hindu shuffle, then what we're going to do is that we're going to cut those cards to the middle, and we're going to do the exact same mechanics as that force that we talked about previously. So we're going to pick up between 5 and 10 cards. We're going to shuffle off, and whenever we get to that break, we're going to grab all the cards above the break. We're going to drop those on top of the left hand, and we're going to drop the right hand cards on top. And we have essentially preserved those cards on top of the deck. So this is very effective. If, for example, you need the aces controlled on top of the deck, or if you need a certain group of cards to stay on top of the deck for a particular trick, you're able to shuffle the cards in a very fair and effective fashion and still keep the 4 aces on top of the deck using that technique. So you see that these techniques are versatile for a lot of different things. You're not just going to use them for force. You're not going to use them for control. You could use them interchangeably, which is a great thing about the Hindu shuffle. So how do we use the Hindu shuffle as an actual control to get cards to the top of the deck? So assuming the spectator has called stop anytime they want, in this case, let's say they call stop right over here, it's the same exact technique. So we're shuffling off on the deck, and now we've actually controlled that 4 of clubs to the top of the deck. So the way we do that is the exact same way that we talked about previously. We're going to Hindu shuffle, have the spectator call stop anytime they want. They say they stop on the 8 of clubs. Now it's going to happen again. We're going to get a break. A hot tip, by the way, this is a very exaggerated break. This is a very exaggerated break done for, of course, show. So an ideal break would be done at the lower left corner with your thumb and some pressure with the forefinger. So ideally, you do this force at this sort of angle to the spectator. So even if there's a very noticeable gap, they won't see it. But you just want to take care of your angles in this case. And the best way to do it is by having the thumb break in the lower left corner, holding the packet with your right hand, and putting pressure with your forefinger to make sure that the packets stay coalesced in the front. So back to what we're talking about here. Notice that that break is still retained the entire time. So once we get to that break, we could cut all the cards above the break, cut that packet to the top, and we've successfully controlled their card to the top of the deck. So we could even do this from a spread. We spread out the cards. The spectator picks any card they want. In this case, is the Ace of Hearts. And in the context of doing a Hindu shuffle, we could have them call stop anytime they want. They place their card there, of course, wherever they freely said stop, and then we're able to shuffle that card directly to the top of the deck in the context of a Hindu shuffle. So lastly, what I want to talk about here is a more advanced technique with the Hindu shuffle. Now, the Hindu shuffle is a very convincing looking shuffle. It looks like the deck is being mixed up. However, we know that pairs of cards stay together and that it's not really doing a lot in comparison to, for example, a riffle shuffle or a pharaoh shuffle. However, there are instances where you want to do a complete deck false shuffle and you want to keep the order of the deck in its entirety. That I just showed you right there was a false Hindu shuffle, meaning that the entire deck is in the same exact order as when we started. This is a very, very nice false shuffle. It's known as a cyclical shuffle for a reason you'll see now, but this is a shuffle developed by Laurent Green, who's a fantastic magician. The guy's a phenomenal worker, but that is a definite convincing Hindu shuffle. And it looks like a normal, typical Hindu shuffle. However, it preserves the entire deck in the exact same order. So the way we do that is we're going to start off by cutting from the middle. So that's going to be the first thing. If we cut from the bottom, this shuffle, by the way, would work if you're doing a stacked deck trick, because if you cut from the bottom, all that's going to happen if you do the mechanics of the false shuffle is one cut. All that happened right there was the same as this. But you see how much dressing it adds to it, and it looks like you're truly mixing a deck. However, if we want to have a full deck false shuffle, what we do is that we start off grabbing about half the cards and we lift them up into the right hand. So I'm going to take approximately more than half of this stack that's in my right hand, and I'm going to drop it onto the left-handed stack while keeping a break. Now, usually I like to have a smaller pinky break for this. I don't mind having my whole pinky in there and separating those halves, because it's going to be important that you're going to be able to grab this entire upper half in a moment. So we're going to just have our pinky separating both halves there. So at this point, all we've done is that we've cut cards from the middle, right? We've cut approximately half the cards from the middle. We've cut more than half of the stack to our left hand and kept a break right there. That's what we've done so far. So now what's going to happen is that we're going to come in with this half in our right hand, and we're going to switch both of these packets. So we're going to switch both of these packets. The way we do this is that we're going to put these packets and we're going to out jog it a little bit, just a tad, nothing too much. And we're going to use our middle finger and our thumb of the right hand to grab the bottom packet that we just put on the left hand. So everything above that pinky break, we're going to grab as we drop these cards on the left half without maintaining a pinky break. So I know that's a lot, but it's actually not a lot that's going on. So far, we cut half the deck. We cut more than half. We put that to make sure that we have a pinky break. We switch both of these packets, the ones that are above, letting this packet drop. And now we're in the same exact position as we were in the beginning. So now we're just going to cut up another packet. We're going to keep our pinky there, do the exact same thing, and repeat this action over and over again until we have very few cards in the right hand. So you notice what this is doing is that it's creating a little bit of a cyclical situation where all the cards are cycling. The packet is getting smaller, but the deck isn't being mixed at all. All that's essentially happening is that we're doing this sort of action here. That's all that's happening. We're doing this sort of action here. However, we're covering it up by switching both packets of the cards just like this. It's a wonderful move. And what that allows you to do is retain the entire order of the deck while simulating a Hindu shuffle. So that is the full deck false shuffle. It is going to be a little bit of a knacky move to get right off the start. You want to do it as slow as possible when you're first learning it, so your hands could kind of understand where they're supposed to be, because the placement's a little bit odd in the beginning. You're grabbing packets with your middle finger, you're grabbing packets with your ring finger, so your fingers are going to be very mixed up in the beginning. But once you get the hang of it, it's going to be a very convincing Hindu shuffle to everyone that doesn't know what's happening. So that is the false Hindu shuffle. So the trick that I'm going to show you guys now works with any sort of control to the top of the deck. However, because the Hindu shuffle is a very fair looking shuffle, I like doing the control and the trick with this particular shuffle. So it's a very simple trick. All we're going to do is we're going to have the spectator call stop anytime they want. Let's say they call stop over here. So they call stop on the Queen of Spades. That card is, of course, lost and shuffled into the deck to the best of our ability. And we're going to make the claim to the spectator that we have the world's fastest hands. So we have the world's fastest hands. So even though the deck is clearly shuffled, they could have picked any card. We're going to put the cards inside of our pocket, and we're going to try to find their card as fast as possible. So the spectator names their card, and just as they name their card, you reach into your pocket and you pull out the card that they picked. So this is a very quick trick. It's a very simple trick, and it's a very powerful trick if done correctly. So the way we do that is as simple as controlling the card to the top of the deck and putting that in our pocket. So you're going to have any card picked, or if you want, you could do the traditional Hindu shuffle style here. They pick this card. In this case, it's going to be the three of clubs. We're going to control this card to the top. Remember, using our method here of obtaining a break and shuffling that card right to the top. And we're going to say, I'm going to try to find your card in the fastest way possible, because I don't know if you know this, but I have the Guinness World Record for the fastest hands. So I want to make sure my pocket's empty. That's post-it notes. So my pocket's empty. Don't think that I'm doing any sort of sneaky stuff. Just going to put the deck inside of my pocket. Of course, you're putting the deck with their card in your pocket. And you try to time it so that when they name their card, that's when you're already reaching into your pocket and pulling out the card. So let's say they go, okay, sir, so do me a favor, name your card. Three of clubs. Okay, that's good. So usually that was a little bit slow, but, you know, I'm working on my speed. Was that your card, three of clubs? Yes, it was. You know, that doesn't happen a lot. Or whatever silly pattern line you want to give. So that's kind of a cute little trick you could do using this particular control in the Hindu shuffle. So there, I hope you guys got something interesting from the Hindu shuffle, which is a usually overlooked shuffle. A lot of people dismiss it because they don't think it's a natural move. They don't think that this is something that could fly by spectators. It is. As long as you shuffle the cards like this normally and you establish this action with your spectators, it will become a natural move. And it's a great tool to have to do a lot of different things. So I hope you guys enjoyed that, and I hope you guys got something out of that. See you in the next lesson.